Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. One day later than usual, but if you may have been listening to either of last week's show, you'll know that we did that to make sure that we fit in everything that happened in the Scottish Cup weekend. And what a weekend it was. Most of the games kind of went the way you expected they would, but there was one particular outlier that I think we're going to get to in quite some detail. Helping me to talk through all of that, it is Mr. Robert Borthwick. Rob, how's it going?
Hello, Mr. Craig Fowler. Yes, it's all good. My team triumphantly made it to the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup, so I couldn't be happier.
Yes, our team did, in fact, triumph. But not all teams, not all Premiership teams triumphed. Especially, let's just get to it. This is a winners and losers podcast, and obviously there's only one place we can start. However, do we start with winners or do we start with losers? I feel we should start with winners. I feel that's more of a terrace ethos. So I'm going to throw out Queen's Park fans as winners. Because, so for anybody who listened to this who's been, living on a different planet for the last few days, Queen's Park defeated Rangers by 1-0 at Ibrox to make their way into the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup. Rangers suffering their latest embarrassment. And I've chosen Queen's Park supporters because for anybody who's a Patreon subscriber and has listened to the podcast I've done with Callum Stewart, and I'm hoping if we manage to make it work to get Callum back on later this week for a podcast that is very much a different tone to the other times I've had him on, when he has been basically rightfully moaning, complaining about the state of his club behind the scenes, because this is a team that in recent years they lost their identity when they were the only amateur side in the SPFL, but there was a reason for that. They were going full time. It was to make sure that it didn't end up, crashing out of the SPFL, ended in the Lowland League, where it's very hard to come back up, as you've seen from Cowdenbeath and Stirlingshire, Albion Rovers, etc., etc. Then there was the selling of the stadium. Again, okay, yeah, you can spin it in a positive, because it was weird to have Queen's Park fans rattling around that stadium. They were supposed to be getting a new one right beside it. It's still the kind of same land. It's still the kind of same area. You can build up a new identity there. But that stadium is barely fit for purpose. They play at Hampden most of the time because it's not big enough to host most championship games. The communication from their board and backers over recent seasons has been non-existent, or just when it has happened, it's been quite dreadful. There's nepotism at one of the most important positions at the club. A 10-year plan to bring in a Dutch model was binned after 2 years. They nearly got relegated that season. And the season they did do very well when they nearly won the title, they sold off their best player in January, and that probably ended up costing them the Scottish Championship title. So there's been a lot that Queen's Park fans have gone through, but it's all worth it. It's all worth it watching your team when something like this happens, because that is something that every single member of that away crowd at Ibrox will remember for the rest of their life.
100%, and rightly so. It's just seeing the scenes, obviously when the guy that sounds like a character from Star Wars scored the goal, seeing the scenes obviously behind the goal to the right-hand side, but then just hearing it when Callum Ferry makes the save as well, obviously seeing what it meant to the players afterwards, and you have put it better than anyone else could there, I think, by saying, what they've been through since they relinquished their status as the gentlemen amateurs of Glasgow's South Side and became a full-time wannabe powerhouse. It's not really been plain sailing, and that's not me saying it disparagingly as well. There was always going to be teething issues. They were always going to be trying new things, different things, to try and jettison themselves up as high as they can, as fast as they can. But reaching a quarter-final and doing it in the manner of going to Ibrox, it's something that I'll be honest, I didn't even watch the game live, because I was like, this will be Rangers win. Now that's what this is. It's yet another home tie for Rangers. Like, it was just, everyone sort of had that expectation.
So I didn't watch it until it got to 60 minutes, and then when it was still 0-0, I was like, well, hang on a second here. Like, if it's got that long without Rangers scoring, you never know. And I was like, I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss something historic happening. So I turned it on, and then sure enough, I think within 10, 15 minutes, the goal went in. What was it?
Yeah, I think Droj came on at 67 and scored on 69. So, yeah. It was basically
within
his
10
first
minutes
touch.
of me turning it on, they'd scored. So, yeah, I was happy to witness that. And yeah, it's just incredible for Queen's Park fans. However, while they are the most heartwarming aspect of this story, they are not the biggest part of this story. Rob, you want to give us a loser? Wonder who this could be.
the entire entity of Rangers Football Club. The most... Don't let me mince my words here, because Hearts are about to play them on Sunday even, but the most pathetic team in Scottish football just now has got to be Rangers Football Club, chasing something that is impossible to achieve for at least the next wee while, getting papped out of the Scottish Cup, getting papped out of the League Cup, absolutely nowhere near the league. Yes, they're doing okay in European football, but that's not enough to spare any blushes, because they've always been good in European football, and this just felt like there's been so many times in the last 18 months or however long Philippe Clement's been in charge when you've been like, right, he's going to go, right? Like this is too much. Like they're going to snap, they're going to break. And then they always kind of pull it back. They go through a good run of form. They get wins against Celtic. They get big European wins. But this feels like an extra rung of the ladder's just been taken away from underneath their feet. And this is the ultimate loser of any Scottish Cup that I can think of in the last few years. I mean, you could even bring in Aberdeen losing to Darvel and Hearts losing to Brora, but they were big one-off results. This feels like something a lot more deep for Rangers. This feels like it's something that runs a lot deeper than what it is.
It does matter. Yeah, obviously Queen's Park are a full-time club, and so it's not quite a Tier 6 team. It's not quite a Highland League team, but at the same time, Rangers size it's not. We're not just talking about just your kind of standard Scottish Premiership club. We're talking about Rangers here, and they were at home, and that makes it so much worse. They were at home. It happened in front of 50,000 of their own fans, but that's a lie because there was nowhere near that much many people inside at Ibrox, which goes back to your point about the kind of the results seemed preordained, and also how much of a hellish season they're having to begin with. But going on to your point about Clement, or your point about how they keep pulling it back, and it seems like Clement's going to remain in the job. I don't know what you think. I don't think there's any point in sacking him at this exact moment. All it's really doing is it's kind of like a punishment for this result. You've led us to this embarrassment, therefore we're going to get rid of you now. I'm not sticking up for Clement overall and saying Rangers should keep him as manager. I don't think they should. I think he should be, if he's still Rangers manager when next season starts, something is going horribly wrong beside the scenes there. This is it. Well, as we know it is anyway, but even worse, so possibly. But I think they're holding on to him because they didn't want to get stuck in to maybe defend the Rangers board slightly, which I know not even a lot of Rangers fans aren't interested in doing at this point in time. But I've always just thought they were sticking with him because, right, out of the title race, but they are performing in Europe, and that's just where the focus is. And they do manage to get to the League Cup's final, and probably should have won that game. And so there's maybe a hope that we can maybe do the same in the Scottish. Obviously, that's now not going to happen. But what would sacking Clement at this point in time achieve? He, for whatever reason, terrible domestically, but on the continent, he seems to be doing a decent job. And that's all that Rangers have left of their season, is to get far as possible in the Europa League. And Clement has showed himself this season of being good at doing that. He's showed himself to be useless at just about everything else. But in that, he's still good. And if that's where he excels as Rangers manager for whatever reason, then you may as well just keep him on. And then as soon as you're out of the Europa League, give him the chop.
The aim now for Rangers is go as far in Europe as you can and go unbeaten for the rest of the season. Because anything less than that for Rangers fans is not good enough. It's that simple. Like, he has to not lose another game in Scottish football until the end of the season, and he needs to get them to a quarter, a semi, even heaven forfend a final in the European competitions. And I just don't see that happening. I don't see them going unbeaten. But I totally agree. It's like, what would they gain from sacking him right now? Not an awful lot. And I think that with Patrick Stewart, Captain Jean-Luc Picard coming in and steadying the ship, like I feel like, they're maybe sort of going to be a little bit less reactionary than they have been in recent times. And I think to eke any positives out of this tragedy of a season for Rangers is that their recruitment does seem to have picked up with guys like Igamani and Hefty and all these guys. And obviously they've kind of got that thought now, right, what are we going to be able to do in the summer?
With the caveat that Jeffy is a left back who has no interest whatsoever in defending, as we've seen many times this season, and as we saw again from the Queen's Park goal.
Yeah, so my favourite kind of left back, that's absolutely fine. But I think there's definite positives coming there. But you're spot on. It's if Philippe Clement is manager come the 4th of August, whenever the first league game is of the season, something has gone terribly wrong.
So the other loser I wanted to chuck out kind of in particular was James Tavernier, who missed a late penalty saved by Callum Ferry. I'll give you a chance to talk about Ferry in a second before we move on, but 14 months ago, myself and Tony were on this podcast and we were talking about the legacy of James Tavernier at Rangers. Now, at the time, he just scored the winning goal in the League Cup final against Aberdeen, and we were talking about how, despite being at the right back, he's always manages to step up in these moments when Rangers do triumph. And the reason why he's kind of derided so much, even by the Rangers fans, and quite often you would see them saying, right, he needs to go, he's part of the kind of cabal of losers that kind of made up the kind of framework of that squad for a good few years, that in actual fact, if a lot of players were as good as Tavernier and could step up in these moments like Tavernier, then Rangers would be in a much better position. But like I say, that was 14 months ago, and in those 14 months, he's really done not much except tarnish his own legacy. And this is a significant blow to it, because this is up there, one of the worst results Rangers have had. Like, this has progressed unicorn levels. This stands out as being like worse than just about anything they experienced in the lower leagues, because there was a bit more kind of context about that. They weren't second in the Scottish Premiership. They weren't back to where they quote unquote should be. And he was there, the captain of the club, the guy who's been there for almost a decade, the ball in his hand. He scores that, Rangers take the game to extra time, probably win the match because Queen's Park would likely just run out of legs. And it would be the kind of same moaning about Clement and this team isn't good enough and stuff like that, which would all be true, but it wouldn't be as disastrous. It wouldn't cause a great giant rift between the fans. It wouldn't create a further chasm between the fans and the board as it has. And he steps up and his penalty is saved. And it just feels like he should have. I don't know how close it was to happening. I don't know if it was Tavernier pushing back, whether it was Rangers wanting to keep him, Rangers wanting too big a fee, whatever. But it really feels like for both parties, he should have left last summer.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing, like the tectonic plates of James Tavernier and Rangers that have just gone too far now. It's like there was a perfect time for him to sort of slide away and do what he was going to do, because, again, as a man who's far from being a Rangers fan, from the outside looking in, he is a legend of that football club. He is. The amount of goals that he's scored, the amount of games that he's captained, he has won a Scottish Premiership title. He's won Scottish Cups. He was the top goal scorer in the Europa League in a campaign they probably should have won the Europa League. Like, that is a guy who should be held in the highest regard. But because it's coincided with such a greater context, negative time for Rangers Football Club, he's the captain. He's the figurehead. He is the constant when you've got guys like Van Bronckhorst and Clement and all the other Beale, all the managers sort of coming in and out and leaving.
Mark
Warburton. There's literally Pedro Caixinha. But you've got all these guys that yes, you can look back on and say they were a failure, but we got rid of them. James Tavernier has just been the constant. He's the kind of the face of it, I suppose. If you're thinking of like Rangers in this era, it's like, James Tavernier is the guy with the armband that scores loads of penalties and great free kicks and stuff. So it's such a weird one, because I can see it from both sides. I can see why Rangers fans would just be like, right, fuck off Tavernier, we've had enough of you now. But also do it with a great deal of thanks and a great deal of recognition for what he's done, the amount of service he's put into Rangers Football Club. Anyone can miss a penalty. He's not missed that many, but he has missed some. Anyone can miss a penalty. It's just that it had to be at that time. And it was one of those where, not dissimilar to George Grant's penalty against Aberdeen, it's not the best penalty, but it is a great save from Callum Ferry.
Yeah. So he was a winner that you brought to the table, just because it wasn't just a penalty save; it was his save throughout the match, and they made another couple of really great stops towards the end when it started to look like, Jesus Christ, I think this is all the vibe around this is that Queen's Park are actually going to win, and that was before the penalty was given, obviously.
But that's what you need for performances like this. You need like players and the underdogs to step up and become absolute legends and heroes, and that's what Callum Ferry did. But it's like anyone can make a few saves. He did it with a bit of personality, with a bit of panache. Like, he's obviously got something about him, and like the celebration, obviously, after he saves the penalty is amazing. But I loved his interview after the game when he was still had his goalie gloves on, holding the microphone, and he was just effervescent. He was really engaging. Quite funny, obviously buzzing, like his family and his girlfriend were there, and he was sort of cracking wise, having a few laughs. But then you add that into the fact that he made some phenomenal saves for Queen's Park as well. Like I say, you need players like that to win games like this. It's always going to be the case that the goalkeeper is going to be busy. I think Rangers had 28 shots in the game. I can't remember how many on target, but there was a good few. but they weren't all just straight at him. He made great saves. He made the penalty save. And yeah, he's made himself a sort of modern day legend of Queen's Park Football Club by putting in that performance, but also doing it in such a sort of gleeful way. Like, goalkeepers are always a bit mad. They're always a bit off the wall, but like, he was just having the time of his life, and you could tell that he was still having the time of his life after the game. He probably still is now until Queen's Park play their next match. So yeah, just that, such a huge amount of time for that level of like just pure boyish joy of what he was doing in goals, and then, you know, celebrating it afterwards and stuff. I just absolutely loved it. He's a name that's been around the Scottish football for years. Obviously, he's properly made his name now by establishing himself as Queen's Park number one. You know, he was kind of very much bit part at Dundee and Stirling Albion, and I think he went to Falkirk and never played. So yeah, it's great that he's sort of got this moment now, and yeah, it's like, if people don't or didn't know much about Queen's Park before the game, they'll at least very much remember now that Callum Ferry was the goalkeeper when that match happened.
Yeah, quite right. Right, Rob, who have you got for us now? A winner or a loser? What would you like to chuck out next?
Ooh, can I just go from any game? Can I do anything?
Yeah, of course, aye, and then we can talk about it in general.
Let's go for Rocky Bushiri. Let's go for Hibernian beating Ayr United in a really tough game at Somerset for them. They did not play their best, but they've now got a guy who can just pop up from centre half and grab games by the scruff of the neck and say, nah, do you know what, fuck this, like, we're better than this. I'm going to score a goal. I'm going to cause some scenes, cause some carnage.
Punch a corner flag.
He's been so close to leaving the club, it feels like about 18 times now, but he never actually has. He's just clung on. It's like the opposite of James Tavernier. Like, do you know what I mean? He's clinging on to the extent whereby he's coming like a proper hero for Hibs fans. And yeah, as soon as that throw was launched into the box, he was like a man possessed. Like, there's a good flick on from Kieran Bowie, but Bushiri basically just shoves everyone out of his way so he can get the diving header in. And I don't think when it got to that stage of the game, 87, 88 minutes, with guys like Kieran Bowie on the pitch, it was still Rocky Bushiri was the one you were like, he'll probably pop up and do something here, because he's been doing it consistently. He's been making big plays for Hibs, and yeah, just a huge moment for him in what was an incredibly tough game for Hibs to navigate through.
What a turnaround it's been for him, because I mean, you could tell the kind of full story, and everybody kind of knows it when Hibs signed him, that they didn't really mean to sign him. They signed him on loan, and there was a clause in the contract that if he played in a certain amount of games, Hibs then had to buy him. Hibs apparently forgot about that, and then he was signed anyway. And then even right after that, he was included in a squad where he was suspended, and that knocked Hibs out of the League Cup, although they were going to go out anyway. They were very likely to go out, put it that way, but it was just that properly sealed it. And then he gets into the team, and he starts to perform. Hibs starts to come around to him a bit more, because he was terrible in that loan spell, but he never really shook off the inconsistency, the kind of daft moments, and there still exist. And the inconsistency hasn't recently. He's been excellent this season, having been nowhere in the picture at all earlier in the campaign. Like, they signed 3 centre-halves in the summer, and they were playing with a back 4. And that was because they thought that Bushiri was not good enough and Will Fish was not coming back. So they really needed to improve. And yet he's managed to emerge, become Hibs' best defender this year. He's been excellent since he's been in the team in November, but he still does have these wild moments. We saw it in the Rangers game where he nearly sold the jerseys late on despite having a great performance, and that's the kind of last thing for him to kind of cut out of his game, because he is improving in so many other areas, and it's credit to David Gray for, like I say, for the last 4 months to get this consistency you're seeing out of him. The interesting thing now is, do Hibs keep him? Because his contract runs out at the end of the season.
I mean, he will be expensive, and I think that looking at Hibs' recent accounts, I don't think they'll be wanting to spend a huge amount of money on a guy that clearly a lot of people at the club think they can do better than. But I think he's just such an enjoyable big oaf that, like, obviously Hearts fans even sort of see him as like a figure of fun. He scored an own goal in the last Edinburgh derby. He did that thing where he nutmegged himself unbelievably from a header. Like, no one still to this day knows how he did that. But he's also loved by Hibs fans because he's coming up with these big moments. He's putting in better performances now. And again, I'm talking about Callum Ferry and personality. Rocky Bushiri has a personality. He's the sort of guy that you want to pull for because he obviously wears his heart on his sleeve, gives absolutely everything, but he's a bit of a rhinoceros on a football pitch. He just runs about, he charges about, he does all this mad stuff, and sometimes it comes off and sometimes he just barges into someone or scores an own goal. So, yeah, I don't think now's not the time for will he be here next season. I would say probably not, because he is going to be on a very cracking, decent wage for them.
Yeah.
But they've got a guy who's become talismanic from centre-half for between now and the end of the season, that let's all just enjoy Rocky Bushiri while he's still here, because he will give opposition fans as much joy as Hibs fans. Let
me just go the other way for a second and say that I think it's... Because that was my first thought, was that he'll probably go because he'll be on a generous contract. He'll be one of many Hibs players on a generous contract that will be, even in light of his recent form and his recent turnaround, above his level of ability. And above what Hibs can justify paying for a Scottish Premiership player. But at the same time, he must have been somebody that were looking to offload last summer, and other teams would be like, nah, because we're not paying him that kind of contract. So it could be a case of where Hibs, and it's a strange scenario, but it could be a case of Hibs go, right, listen, we need to cut our cloth. We can only offer you X amount. Say it's $5,000 a week. Say we can offer you $5,000 a week to be our starting centre-half for the next 2-3 years. And then it's possible that he's not going to get much better elsewhere, and he will have to. It's something I can imagine will be allowed to play out. Like, I don't think I'd be surprised, for instance, if he signs an extension within the next couple of weeks. Could happen, but I think he will wait. He will want his options as open as possible, but he may find that there's just no great better offer out there. There might be slightly better. There might be a slightly better offer in England, but then he might, weigh it up, living in Edinburgh. He's now really beloved by the Hibs fans. I don't think, I'm more with you, I think he might leave, but I don't think it is out with the realms of possibility that he stays.
Agree to disagree.
Okay, fair enough. Right,
give me a loser. Give me a loser, Craig. Come on, give me a loser. I want a loser.
Okay, so I'm going to throw out a loser that I think you had as a winner and a loser. I'm going to go for Kevin Nisbet.
Yeah.
I know that he scored the third goal in this game, and he did kind of endear himself to supporters and show that he's human, and that always kind of helps when you show supporters that you're human, that have been on your back, and then it kind of makes them step back a little bit and like you that ever bit more. But I still think overall, in Aberdeen's 3-0 victory at the weekend over Dunfermline to get themselves into the quarterfinals, that it wasn't a great time for him. He missed he missed an absolute sitter. He didn't play well, and overall, even though he managed to get a goal, he didn't do enough to say to the supporters, look, I've still got something to contribute between now and the end of the season. And more crucially, he didn't do it to Jimmy Thielen, who is going to, I assume, just be counting down the seconds until Ode Dabaj has got his work permit through and he can start him up front instead.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think he probably was more loser than winner at the weekend. That miss was atrocious, and I think again you add the context of recent weeks into it at the same time, and he's just been so far away what I think so many people expected him to be at Aberdeen, especially after their start to the season, especially after he got that blockbuster winner in Dingwall and all this kind of stuff. It was like, oh my God, he is going to be the Kevin Nisbet of 2-3 years ago. He's going to make a huge difference for this Aberdeen team. It's just not worked for him. And it happens so often with players coming back from a spell down south. Obviously, it can go one or two ways, but it happens quite often that, he maybe just hasn't found the same home as what he had at Hibs and that same sort of comfort level that he had there. And obviously, there's a team full of failure behind him in recent weeks, a team that's been properly, historically struggling for any form of result or creativity. And I think obviously the number one target on Aberdeen's winter transfer list was a striker, because he's not been doing it, and obviously Papagay has been out, but also plays a little bit more receded from playing that number 9 position. But I put him as a winner and a loser because of basically what you mentioned. Is like he did put a chance away. He celebrated by screaming "thank fuck" at the sky, which was brilliant, because again, it's like it does show that he's like, this isn't for a lack of want or for a lack of try and a lack of effort. He's just going through a bad spell just now, and everyone knows the quality that he does possess. You never know. any goal, a tap in against Dunfermline Athletic, basically in garbage time to secure a 3-0 win, that could still be hugely important for his season because he's remembered what it feels like when the ball hits the back of the net. It could be a turning point. Aberdeen, you feel kind of like a coiled spring, or certainly that's what the Aberdeen fans are projecting onto me. Maybe I'm just believing it a bit too much, but it's like they will come good again. And will Kevin Nisbet be a part of that? Will Dabaj be the sort of the star signing that they want him to be? He might not be. There's every possibility. So yeah, a winner and a loser. He didn't have a great game. He's not been playing well in recent weeks, but he's still got a goal. And for any striker, that is absolutely... that's priceless. And also the celebration, screaming thank fucking at this guy because it was quite funny. But yeah, winner and loser for me.
I just got an image of Craig Telfer recoiling there as he listens to this when you said garbage time.
Yeah, no, good. Good. Yeah. Good. No, that's fine. I'll keep putting Americanisms into this. I have no issue with that whatsoever.
Hey, Rob, man, you're coming through in the clutch.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Now we're talking.
Right, give me something else. Give me a winner or a loser. Either or.
You're not fussy. Let's go to Hearts versus St Mirren.
Yes.
The game last night. And to start with, let's go for the winner to start with. And it's Callum Neuenhoff. 11 long months out of playing football. Gets his opportunity when Hearts are chasing a game on a tatty field of a pitch in the piss and rain, and they've not really created anything in that game up until then. Slightly better second half, but he comes on, he scores a goal, which is, it's exactly what you want from Callum Neuenhoff, is arriving late into the box and causing issues in that way. It kind of bobbles underneath a man who we'll speak about in just a wee second as well. But other than that, he just came on and played really well. It's like he hadn't been out for 11 months. It's like he'd been out for a couple of weeks, which is what was meant to be in the first place. and he's come back in and just seamlessly kind of saved Hearts' Scottish Cup campaign. I'm absolutely buzzing for him. Such a nice guy. Just gets about his business. Keeps himself to himself, but having the ability to come on and make that sort of difference after 11 months out is remarkable. Fair play to him.
I thought that was the most promising aspect of it. Him scoring that goal was, as you say, kind of arriving in the box late, getting in those positions. Because when Neuenhoff first arrived, so when he went out, and Hearts fans have cited him as a big reason for kind of Hearts struggles throughout a lot of 2024. When he first arrived, I wasn't a big fan of him. Like, I felt he was kind of a bit of a sideways passer, a bit safe, didn't really do much else other than that. But as time went on, he managed to... Part of it was just settling into Scotland, because he was just... Like, he was working so much, but that work was starting to have an impact on the game, rather than just kind of running around without really being effective at all. So he managed to get that down, but he just kind of naturally fitted into Scottish football a bit better, got used to the pace of the league, the intensity of the league. But he was also getting forward and scoring goals, getting forward and helping to create opportunities. And I did wonder, with him being out so long and missing so much football, missing so much time, whether he would revert back to what we saw when he first came on the scene. Because there wasn't really a huge sample size for it. And when you're out that long, there is usually get players taking a kind of setback, either physically or just kind of it knocking their confidence. And, I mean, it's early days. We only played one game, but I thought he was good. I thought he was positive, and he scored a goal. So, hopefully, from a Hearts perspective, it should mean that he goes back into the team and just kind of does pick up where he left off and uses that. Instead of being woe is me for missing so much time, it's kind of uses that frustration to his benefit. Yeah,
100%. And, like you said there, he didn't have a fast start last season. He grew into being a very good midfielder, but he grew into being an all-round midfielder. And I think that's what Hearts have kind of missed this season, is having someone who can pick it up deep, drive forward between the lines, play passes forward and get on the end of crosses. And that's what he was beginning to do, obviously, right up until he got his injury.
From a Hearts perspective, I could say a loser is Benny Beningame, because I'm presuming that his legs fell off after having to play 120 minutes.
He had a gleeful conversation with Brian McLaughlin after the game. He looked at an absolutely fine fettle. So I've got no qualms, worries. No qualms, worries. No worries or issues with Benny whatsoever. That's fine.
Okay, I know you want to give us a loser for that game, so go ahead.
Zach Hemming. Get that right up, you mate. There you go. I know. Listen, I know it's part and parcel of penalty shootouts. It's part and parcel of the game. That's fine. But the image of James Penrice laughing in his face as he reeled away, having knocked out St Mirren, it was very enjoyable. I'd kind of chuck Marcus Fraser in there as well because he pretended to have cramp after scoring his penalty in order to try and put James Penrice off.
Try to fight Craig Gordon for the ball, and then he tied his shoelaces before walking back to the halfway line on the penalty spot, and then he pretended to have cramp and was booked. It's quite a few seconds for him.
But all of that happened inside the box. Like, he pretended to have cramp in the box. And there was a great image of Jamie McCart sort of laughing in his face on his way to celebrating as well. So it's beautiful stuff, really. The fact that Hemming had sort of two black eyes as well, it's like, God, your luck's really down just now, buddy. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up. Also, the ball does squirm under him for Hart's goal. It's not right in the corner.
Squirms under for the Hart's goal, and I think there's two penalties he could save. The Vargas one he should have saved.
The Vargas one was well hit. It was the George Grant one that I think was a really good height for him. He gets two hands onto it and he pushes it into the top corner. So,
and speaking of player reactions, like human player reactions, George Grant, I think the camera just cut away as he started doing it, but you see him going like that, like doing that kind of intake of breath, like got away with one there.
Yeah, 100%. But he got two good hands on two penalties. Like, you're right, the Vargas one is more difficult because Vargas has kind of spanked it. But yeah, if you're going to do all the gamesmanship and stuff, I at least back it up by having wrists that aren't made of poppadoms. Like,
I was gonna. Oh yeah, I did notice Fraser at the end at full time when the players are all kind of congregating and shaking each other's hand. I could see him talking to Penrice. And it did very much look like he was kind of like, congratulations, mate, good game. Or just, bit of gamesmanship at the end. And you can kind of see Penrice be like, oh, yeah, it's fine, forget about it.
Aye. Yeah, no, 100%. I think anyone would do the same in the opposite situation. I think it just so happened to be the team that I support, and we won. So I'm going to take as much glee out of that, as I possibly can.
Okay, where shall we go next? I'm going to throw out a winner. And I'm going to go for a triumphant team for another Terrace podcast member, Gary Cocker in Dundee, who made it to the quarterfinals and a quarterfinal tie with Hearts at Tynecastle after they defeated Airdrie 4-0. And my winner is Lyle Cameron.
No worries, that's fine. There you go.
Cameron.
Lyle Winston Cameron.
Cameron was left out of Dundee's 6-0 defeat to Celtic. That's another reason why he's a winner, because that was after he had signed a pre-contract with Rangers, and the club thought it was better to take him out of that game where he would be booed by the Celtic fans, probably not entirely defended by his own fans, and it would just be a bit of a mindfuck for him. So he missed that, but was back in the starting 11 for this one. And it's just good to get fans back on your side as quickly as possible. He's going to be a Dundee player for the rest of the season. The fans obviously, and rightly, aren't happy that he's decided to go to Rangers as opposed to, possibly going to England where they would send him off with his best wishes. But he's obviously doing what's best for what he thinks is best for his career. But he's going to still represent them between now and then. Dundee are in a relegation battle. They're going to need the talents of Lyle Cameron, and it's just good to get him back on side as quickly as possible. We saw it not too long ago with John Souttar in the team. Came back in, fans were booing him. I always thought that was quite ridiculous, but Souttar eventually kind of turned round sentiment that at the very least fans weren't getting on his back, and then he ultimately, in a defeat, but putting a terrific performance in the Scottish Cup final that season. Lyle Cameron's going to have the opportunity to get his side back to Hampden, and in this one he scored 2 goals, got an assist, done the sensible thing and didn't kind of over-egg his celebrations, just kind of played it humbly and just showed that he's going to give his best while he's in a Dundee shirt from now until the summer, and I think that's the best case scenario for just about everybody involved. So the resentment doesn't linger as much as it otherwise could have done if he'd immediately stanked the place out against a Scottish Championship team.
No, 100%. And it's interesting, obviously, Lyle Cameron, a Scottish Cup quarter-finalists, making that backward step in the summer to move to Rangers. But I think he will...
Nice.
Thank you. But yeah, listen, I don't think, and again, you can tell player personalities quite a lot by the way they conduct themselves on the pitch, in the media, all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it was ever in doubt that he was going to give absolutely everything for Dundee, a team that is properly nurtured him and given him this platform to go where he's going. The differences, obviously, with the players mentioned are Connor Barron, John Souttar. Hearts and Aberdeen fans hate Rangers, and it's very, very well publicised that is a rivalry that both those teams see as being a key part of their sort of fandom, if you want to say. Dundee don't have that as much with Rangers and Celtic. They just don't. So I think that's going to make the transition of coming back into the team, obviously after being left out the Celtic game, it was always going to make it that wee bit easier anyway. And I think it'll be fine for Cameron, because I think most people from a Dundee perspective will understand why he's made the move that he's made and why he's doing what he's doing. So yeah, happy for him coming back in, scoring a couple of goals, and yeah, he's an integral part of that Dundee team, and he will continue to be right up until the final kick of this season.
Okay, Rob, give us another winner or loser.
Another winner or loser. Let's go for Mr. Rhys McCabe's Airdrieonians, generally, as a great big fat loser. My goodness me, I think that Real Maroon, the Hearts supporters team that I used to play for, could have scored 4 against that Airdrie team at the weekend. They're still trying to play football the right way, and they've got players who don't know how to do it. And Rhys McCabe is obviously steadfast in his belief that football should be played a certain way. But my fucking God, that 4th goal, you are up against Simon Murray. You are up against the biggest fucking nuisance in Scotland's top flight, and you think you can take the ball, not even on the half turn, back to goal and turn and look for a midfielder. No, he's going to be right there. He was right there. He squares it to Lyle Cameron and gets his second. Just generally speaking, though, they did look garbage. It was a slightly better second half. Dundee had the game won. I don't think Dundee shifted out of first gear in that second half, but it's just dire times, because Rhys McCabe was meant to be the next great hope of Scottish football young management, and he's not kicked on. And I know they lost a lot of big players last summer. They weren't able to really replace them. But even then, it's like, how can you then, as a young manager who's got this huge amount of potential, how can you get the best out of the guys that you've got? And he's not been able to do that. I'm not writing him off from, never being able to do it at any other team and any other level, but certainly this season has been just such a massive letdown.
I think it'll be the same team at a new level. I think it'll be Airdrie manager in League One next season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So I guess it's just a bit of a shame, because this time a year ago we were all waxing lyrical about what Rhys McCabe could do and what his next move's going to be, and is he going to? I think the St Johnstone job came up at one stage. Was he going to get that? No, he didn't. But right, the next one's just around the corner, and it's just not happened. And again, putting himself up against Premiership opposition, a team that had zero confidence, having shipped 12 goals in their last 2 games, and not being able to lay a glove on them is just it's a bit of a sad indictment, and maybe that's why their fans were running about outside the Derry with knives.
Oh, really? Bloody hell.
Yeah, Gary Cocker grassed them in. Fucking grassy Cocker. So, apparently they were being a bunch of little nuisances. So, there you go.
There's a rise of wee wanks all across Scottish football, especially in the kind of smaller teams.
Yeah, I think Airdrie might have always
They're not listening to Telfer. They're not enjoying their football respectfully. Right, I think we've only got 3 games left to cover. Is that right? Am I right in saying that?
Let me have a quick look here. We've still got St Johnstone. We've still got Wraith Rovers. And we've still got Livingston. Yeah.
Okay. So let's start at McDermott Park. So I'm going to throw out a winner. I've got a winner and a loser for this one. So a winner is Adama Sidibe, who netted his first goal since August the 11th, to score in the 87th minute and defeat Accies 1-0. St Johnstone seemed to be the better team in this one and were controlled, but Mackenzie Kirk missed 3 really good chances. And that's another reason Sidibe's a winner. Not only did he break his long streak without scoring a goal, but he also saw the man in front of him in the St Johnstone depth chart. There we go, let's throw another Americanism there. That saw him kind of struggle, so he might get his opportunity again. And St Johnstone kind of need that, because Mackenzie Kirk has been a lot better this season than I certainly thought he was going to be. I've held my hands up many times and said I didn't see him becoming a Premiership player this soon, because last season he was on loan at Hamilton Accies in League One and didn't do anything. And that was for a team going for the title. I thought, how is he going to manage a team that's struggling? Well, you can see it this year. Is it may be a team that's struggling, but he's got a lot of pace and he works very hard. And he does have an eye for goal. and he's been a much better sign, especially when you consider his age. He doesn't have like a tremendous goal return, but considering his age and the fact he's got a bit of potential about him as well, I think Johnstone have done very well out of what initially appeared to be just a big fat piece of nepotism. But I still don't think he necessarily has the quality that's going to be a difference maker if St Johnstone are going to survive. See, DB, as we saw last season, does have that. And if this goal, man, like you talk about Kevin Nisbet, possibly that tap in against Dunfermline in garbage time, if that gets him going, then it could be the same for Sidibe. And I mean, fair play. When I initially saw it, I initially saw it when Sportsy was on in the pub on Saturday night, and I thought it was so funny because I thought he'd just like hit off him and then he just sprints away celebrating like he's just banged one in for 30 yards. But no, fair play on the replays. He does intentionally duck his head to get something on the ball. And I think that's key in deceiving the goalkeeper and meaning that St Johnstone did manage to get the victory and without having to go to extra time and putting more minutes, putting more miles on their players in what is obviously a tough point in the season for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely intentional. You really need to watch the replay a few times to see that he's properly ducked his head down to it, and that sort of like reaction time's great. You're talking about the SJFC attacking roster there, and I think that obviously with Mackenzie Kirk, he's going to be a guy that will pop up with a decent number of goals, but is he going to be a reliable goal scorer over the course of a season? Maybe not. And I think that obviously what St Johnstone are looking for is like this season's Callum Hendry to come in and just properly sort of take them by the scruff of the neck from an attacking point of view and drag them to safety. And that's obviously got to be the aim. Who's that going to be? It could easily be Sidibe. He's a guy that we know has so much potential, but sticking the ball in the back of the net is the bread and butter for any centre forward, and he needs to do it more often. So, having one that Graham Carey's sort of spanked towards the corner flag and you've just nodded down and put in the back of the net, that could be the start of something really big for him. And I think that, it's the Scottish Cup. It's not going to get them any closer to safety in the league, but it can give them a lot more confidence as a team going forward now. Just winning games like that and getting yourself through it and having that feel-good factor of being in the hat for the next round of the Cup, and obviously getting not a bad draw for them as well. So yeah, I think it was a big positive, and the big winner is obviously Sidibe from that game, because I don't think there was a huge amount going on otherwise, to be honest.
So a loser I had for this game was Ollie Shaw. Now, he had probably the best chance for Aki's to get something for this game. Now, it's not the worst miss you're ever going to see. However, I think he contributes to that. So it's a ball through and behind. He initially has the step on the defender. I think it's Mikulic. But he kind of like aggressively cuts across him, as if like Mikulic, he's at least like taking Mikulic out of the play, which he does to an extent. But he also moves himself far too wide, so that when he does get the chance to shoot, if he's going to finish it has to be a really great finish to squeeze it in past the goalkeeper. And it's one of those ones where he should have instead, like he's in behind the defender. At that point, you've got the yard, just head towards goal. Head towards goal. Obviously be mindful of where the recovering defender is. Make sure he can't sneak it off you. But you have to just, the shortest distance between point A and B is in a straight line. And he kind of ignored the straight line to maybe kind of thought about it too much. Whereas he maybe should have just done the simple thing. And the reason why he's a loser, because that seems a bit harsh to pick him out for that, but this is somebody that it was rumoured was going to come back to the Scottish Premiership in the January transfer window. Now, I was incredulous when I heard that. I mean, nothing personal against Ollie Shaw. I have no idea what he's like as a person, whatever. I just think he's showed time and again for the many chances he's had that he's not a Scottish Premiership striker. He is a very good Scottish Championship striker. But when Johnstone looked like they were considering bringing him in January, I was like, no, why? But the best way to shut up somebody like me and to show St Johnstone that they've made a mistake in not signing him is to put away that chance or to like score a goal or to make an impact on the game. He gets his opportunity and he doesn't make the most of it, and that's why I've got him in the losers category. Even though that might seem a little bit harsh overall, because it wasn't exactly a Kevin Nisbet style miss. No,
I think that's fair enough. It speaks volumes. They didn't even start the game as well. John Rankin didn't have the trust in him to start and make a difference in that sort of sense as well. So, yeah, I think there's a few different aspects to that, and I couldn't agree more. I think you can be a very good Championship striker that means you are going to get more chances at the top flight. The next time he does get a chance at it, I reckon he probably will get another chance at it at some stage. He needs to take it, because this is one of the best young strikers in Europe we're talking about here.
What a callback. That was Leanne Dempster during an interview with Hibs TV, which was released. That was about 5-6 years ago, was it? Maybe longer than that. But yeah, that was. I remember it was a Hibs fan who was first put it on, like clipped out and put it on Twitter, just like that with the caption on Twitter, like, "Sorry, what?"
Absolutely fantastic. Huge fan.
Yeah. Right. I am going to throw out a winner that you can take the ball on this one. I can hand it off to you, Rob. And so the winner here is Dyson Maeda, who netted a hat-trick in Celtic's 5-0 victory over Wraith Rovers. And I can also say that Sean McGuigan is also a winner, because he told us that instead of deciding to get a ticket for Celtic Park, as soon as the draw was made, he booked a restaurant for him and his good lady, so he didn't have to suffer through this one. And that was a good decision overall, it has to be said. But yeah, Maeda bagging a hat-trick, and the momentum is now starting that Maeda is this year's Player of the Year. A couple of months left until the voting will take place, but if the vote was to be made now, I think he would maybe get it.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's just such a likeable character as well, and I think that, like, obviously scoring a hat-trick, fantastic. Like, some players see themselves as being too big for lower league opposition, and they kind of try and breeze through the game. Dyson Maeda does not do that. Doesn't matter if you're playing against Borussia Dortmund, Wraith Rovers, Bayern Munich, Hamilton Accies, like, he'll just give the exact same level of commitment to the team. But I think he's just become so much more of a main man this season. Even before his move to France, Kyogo was good, but he wasn't hitting the levels that he was before, which means the guys around about him needed to do more. And obviously Nicholas Kuhn has been fantastic for Celtic this season. He's stepped up. But Dyson Maeda is playing the football of his Celtic career right now. He's been absolutely phenomenal. And even just, you look at the goals, like that's number 9. That's a guy who is playing through the middle and putting himself in the right positions to stick the ball in the back of the net. The first one, all he's done is, obviously, it's great play from Luke McKeown and Paulo Bernardo, but he's put himself between the sticks. He's standing where a centre forward should be standing. Yeah. He's found that separation from the two centre halves, and he's like, right, okay, I'm now in a position whereby I've got a shot on goal. He sticks it away, gives Josh Ray the eyes. And the other ones obviously are it's what you come to expect from any number 9. He's playing in the right positions, and he's getting himself to, within 10 yards of goal. And obviously that's always going to make things so much easier for him. But the amount of work that he does for the team, and how much he's obviously adored by his teammates and by the fans now at Celtic, who over the years rightly have asked questions about the quality and the consistency of Dyson Maeda, and can he do this at every level, week by week? Is he going to be a bit of a Dessers, and that he misses huge glaring opportunities but then scores wonder goals? But he's kind of got the glaring misses away. He's got rid of that from his game now. He's now in 21 goals for the season. We're obviously only in the start of February, and he's sort of reached that feat. He's now scored 50 goals for Celtic, one of the fastest in sort of living memory to reach 50 goals for Celtic as well. So it's like, it's not a bad feat whatsoever. And I think that, again, I feel like a common theme sort of coming through this podcast has been the human side of it. And he had his 2 kids, he had his son and daughter with him as mascots on the day, and he sent a lovely tweet out to the Wraith Rovers players, thanking them for being so kind to his kids and giving them high fives and making them feel involved. And as I say, he's just kind of, obviously fans fell in love with Kyogo, for example, because he was so sort of gracious, and he was always thanking everyone and doing all this, sort of going above and beyond of what a footballer does. And Dyson Maeda, obviously, he's kind of always been like that as well. So yeah, just lovely to see. And yeah, I think if the voting is right now, he is Player of the Year, hands down. And even if the voting is in a couple of months' time, he will probably be Player of the Year.
Yeah, he's a big beneficiary of Celtic not signing another striker in January, for what you said, because this game shows that he's kind of the other option to Adam Ida. And Adam Ida isn't going to start every single game for Celtic between now and in the summer. A, he's not good enough to do that playing consistently. That Rodgers isn't going to turn to another option. And B, there's just too many games that even if Ida was doing the business all the time, there's going to be some rotation regardless. And also with Jota there, they just kind of have to try and fit him into the team. So yeah, Maeda will start more games up front. And he should have been thanking the Wraith players for being that pish that he was able to score a hat-trick on this day and make it extra special for his kids.
Give me a loser.
Yeah, loser for the same game, Kevin Dabrowski. So he didn't play. So you could say that he was maybe a slight winner because the man who's coming to take his job conceded 5 goals. But overall, it's not a great sign for Big Kev. So Josh Ray only came in last week, signed a loan from the end of the season from St Johnstone, but immediately made number 1. I think that shows that Barry Robson is not a big fan of Dabrowski and thinks they should be doing better at the goalkeeper position. And because even though like you can have a goalie that's okay and managers will still probably stick with them and use their budget elsewhere, it's only when they really, I think it's only when they really don't rate a keeper that they'll bring in somebody else. And I think that's what you're seeing here. And Josh Ray is also a bit of a tough player to try and beat out between now and the end of the season because Ray, not great at Premiership level with St Johnstone, but was very good with Airdrieonians in the Championship last year. And if he can replicate that form, he's not going to make the mistakes it's going to make Robson think twice. And Dabrowski is out of contract at Starks Park at the end of the season. So he might have played his last game for the club, which will please Andy Harrow at least, because I know he's not a big fan of Dabrowski, who makes some excellent saves, but also has a problem with coming for crosses. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think that the writing was maybe slightly on the wall in the Fife derby because he was not good against Dunfermline. He made a couple of real, again, not glaring, but certainly errors in that game. And I think that obviously you've got Barry Robson coming in and looking at where he can try and improve. And listen, if you can get a top quality Championship goalkeeper in Josh Ray, like you say, he didn't really do it at top flight level. He's not the first, won't be the last, but at that level, he's very good. He's proven it before. Then yeah, the writing could be on the wall for Dabrowski, and you know he's a moments goalkeeper, and you don't often get that. Like you get either solid, mental, or shite, but he's kind of all three. So like he's kind of got every part of that because he is, again, feel like I'm boring myself, but he's a personality and he really gets involved in that side of it. And I think that obviously when things were going well, they were hounding Dunfermline every time they played them and he was making big saves in those games, then obviously he's sort of putting himself into that cult hero bracket. He's putting himself into that sort of conversation, but that can only last you so long when you're still making mistakes on the sort of day-to-day and the week-to-week. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it's managed by Barry Robson, because I can, judging by the sort of character he is, I don't think Dabrowski will take it lying down. I think he'll be fighting as hard as he can to try and get back into the team. But yeah, the proof will be in the pudding for Ray when it comes to league games and not playing against easily the best team in Scotland.
So Rob, I believe you have one more winner to take us home.
Yeah, man, we are scraping the barrel here for anything from the Livingston Cove game. But the city, the beautiful city of Adelaide, Australia, what a great day it was for them, because Tete Yengi and Ryan McGowan, the 2 goal scorers in Livingston's 3-0 win over Cove Rangers, both from that city. And showing, I think we can sort of take each player in their merit just now as well. Tete Yengi isn't really getting a start for Livingston, but he's become something of a super sub in recent times. He's a very limited but very useful footballer for David Martindale's side. He's such a big unit, but he can shift. And I think that when he does get opportunities in front of goal, he's got a decent strike on him, left foot, right foot. He's scored a couple of absolute pingers this season, and his 2 finishes at the weekend were really good as well. So it shows that, Livingston have strength and depth, and I think when it comes to title challenges, especially in the Championship, that's such a massive thing to have, and they are certainly in that sort of title challenge equation. And Ryan McGowan's been a phenomenal signing for them. He's gone in there and done really, really well, playing, he's played all over the place in the past. He's played sort of right back, he's been put in centre mid, he's been played on the, in any fullback position, he's been played at centre half in this team, and he just looks so comfortable in there, and really sort of, with his work ethic, with his sort of aggression when it comes to duels and one-on-ones, it's such a perfect David Martindale signing, and such a perfect foil to have for any other sort of potential ball-making, ball-playing centre-half, if you want to call it that, alongside him. But yeah, he's been fantastic for Livy this season, and he scored a classic Ryan McGowan goal. It just bounced in off a part of his body, and that was enough to see it hit the back of the net. So yeah, Livingston, I think, are, so many people doubted what they were going to be able to do when they went down last season, and I think that David Martindale's just shut pretty much everyone up. He's signed well. He's constructed a really, really sturdy football team that he's now added to with the likes of Macaulay Tate, who's come in and done incredibly well. Robbie Fraser has come in and done incredibly well from Rangers as well. And although Cove properly knocked on the door, it wasn't an easy win by any stretch. 3-0 looks like it was probably a walk in the park if you look at it at face value. It wasn't. Mitch Megginson, Fraser Fivey had some really, really good chances in the game, weren't able to put them away.
Yeah.
And that's when Tete Yengi came in and sort of finished them off. So obviously a great win for Livingston. Martindale was saying after, he's like, I've been rubbish in this competition. So it's nice to get a couple of favourable draws and get us to where we are. And obviously, as favourable as it is for St Johnstone, it's favourable for Livy as well. They'll be looking at this as a big opportunity to get to Hampden for the first time since obviously they got to that League Cup final against St Johnstone a few years back. So yeah, it's really positive, exciting times for Livingston just now, because they've made themselves part of the conversation in the league, but also now in the cup competitions. And again, a lot of that is down to Messrs McGowan, Yengi, and everyone else.
Yeah, and I think you could maybe say, if you wanted to pick a loser, you just maybe say Cove Rangers overall, because they've never made a Scottish Cup quarter-final before. And it's not the easiest of draws. They're away from home to a team in the league ahead of them, but when you consider who else they could have been playing, it is on the easier side. And they did give Livingston a good game and read some missed chances, and on another day might have managed to spring a cup shock. So having played that well, come quite close, and having to rue certain moments in the game that went against them, that's just going to be a bit of a sore one. I think the big chance was that Will Gillingham had the big header that he put wide.
Yeah, that was a huge chance. Yeah.
Number 6 off the bench. He to stick with the American theme, he played college soccer in University of California, and some of the teams he's played for, some good names. South Georgia Tormenta 2 and Central Valley Fuego. That's who he played for before he came to Cove.
Central Valley Fuego, huge fan of that. That's great. Tell you what, why have all 3 words in Spanish when you can just choose one? There you go. To be fair though, they did pick the best one. Like if they'd put like Valley in Spanish and just put fire at the end, then that would have been less of an impact. So was it South Georgia Tormenta 2? Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see the first one, but I'm sure it was very good.
There we go. That was the... Right, let's just finish there. Rob, before we do, I meant to do this at the start, but I forgot. We've got some news to tell everybody who's not aware, and that is A View for the Terrace is coming back for the second half of our 2024-25 season run. That's another 10 episodes, and the first of which will be aired on February 21st. So that'll be the typical... So long as there's no injury or illness before then, the typical lineup for the first show, but it'll be exactly as it was or very similar to as it was in the first spell, with a mixture of guests and 4-man panel and a 3-man panel with a guest throughout this row. So we're certainly excited about it coming back. Looking forward to getting back to it again, and hope everybody listening is as well. Rob, anything to add to that?
No, just please tune in, please. It means so much to us. Just please.
Yeah, and if we're going to tune in, it is favourable if you do so via the iPlayer. That is where a lot of the figures get judged as the iPlayer becomes a more important metric for the BBC as times kind of roll on and people are used to streaming more rather than watching TV live. So if you're somebody that has access to the iPlayer, then it's certainly beneficial for us if you watch it via that. So that would be doing a solid for the Terrace brand in general.
I wasn't sort of pleading with people to tune in for numbers or any metrics or anything. I've just got a God complex. That's all it is.
Yeah, so tune in for numbers so we make sure we stay on the air for more seasons and for Rob's fragile ego.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Right, that'll do us. We'll be back again on Thursday. I'm not going to make any promises for who's going to be on, because every time I do, somebody has to drop out at the last minute. But there will be a lower league show regardless, and we hope you tune in then. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.